But I don't want all these people to have control, to borrow money, to do whatever they darn well please, without our control. And that's what this is. They're going to create their enterprise zone wherever they feel like, wherever they think it would be good. How about the rest of the citizens of Lake Worth? They don't have a thing to say. I think this is a very, very poor way to operate a city, where you are delegating work to everybody except yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne Squire?
Suzanne Squire, do I get his extra minutes? I like to talk a lot. Enterprise zones. I have the privilege of working for a gentleman who can afford the Business Daily Review. And that, and also in the Palm Beach Post, there was a story about an enterprise gentleman. It was a sugar company, and they didn't even get open. They're 1 year and they're bankrupt, and the mayor actually stood behind them and vouched for it. They're calling this the unknown government. It does take a lot of money. Mr. Tim is right. They can do all this without your vote, and we are promised, no, we're guaranteed a Republican or a representative form of government, and this does not follow suit with what the law is. They can incur indebtedness, they can eminent domain property. I mean, this is ridiculous, the power these guys have. They don't really provide public services because the taxes are swept away by other people, and they can choose a piece of artwork over a street light. That doesn't educate the children, there's no street maintenance, doesn't protect us from crime, unless the public community benefit, have we changed the name, or is it still community benefit? You too can get a police substation. Let's plan for crime. And as far as picking up garbage from other people, why? Why can't we teach them like you're trying to teach us the lessons? Why can't they be taught to pick up their own garbage after themselves? Why do we have to come out? Why would you teach a student to come out and clean up garbage after somebody else? This is what they call modern day rainbow slavery. It's not just the wrong color. Everybody just gets to be a slave of the government. You guys are not the boss of us. And a lot of people are getting ticked off. Everybody said, where you been, where you been? I've been listening a little bit more. And it's amazing. You guys are worse than I thought you were. And yes, you are responsible, you're the leaders, you should know what the law is. And when you allow people to disobey it and make it up as you go along, that's where our problem lies. Because we're not in the same book or on the same page.
Thank you. Lawrence McNamara left a card. I suggest that the enterprise zone exclude the area of District 3 east of Federal Highway. This section is 99% residential and pays the lion's share of taxes the city collects. Excluding it will avoid the possibility of devaluing the properties because of the areas listed as in need of revitalization. Thank you for your consideration. Ms. Loretta Sharp?
Loretta Sharp, 1311 South Bromway. Well, of course, I'm for the enterprise zone. When I saw the presentation that you're about to see, I was absolutely, almost fell out of the chair. I know real estate very well, and I know the vacant property list very well, but I had no idea how far below we were in every other thing they measured, in unemployment and property values. And I know the property, and by the way, the property values in the MLS is going up. I used to be able to, a couple of years ago, punch properties under 20,000 in Lake Worth and get a slew of properties. Now I can punch properties at 50,000 and there's none there. So in the MLS, they're at least going up. But if you don't take advantage of this federal money, it's going to go somewheres. It's going to go somewhere. If you don't take advantage of it to turn this town around, I don't know what you're going to do. You know, Peter made a joke and said maybe, Suzanne made a joke, maybe you should go bankrupt and let the county take it over. That's exactly what will happen. Because you can only take so much out of utilities. And I think you're almost at the threshold of what you can take out of utilities when you lend money for the casino building. Okay. I don't know what you're going to do if you don't bring all those things up. And you bring property values up. And you take the federal money to do it, because the federal money is going to go somewhere. And I don't care if you exclude Parrot Cove. I don't care if you exclude Lawrence McNamara's district, I don't care if you exclude my district. But the rest of this town needs an enterprise zone badly. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner comments? Commissioner McCoy?
First, I want to apologize a little bit that when I first was exposed to this, it seemed like an opportunity to bring some, still not quite sure whether it brings grant money in or opens the opportunity for it. It seems like anything that can help us out financially in our city is pretty hard to be against, as Ms. Sharp has pointed out. However, as I looked and read what is written, which I've come to learn when you do this stuff that's written is pretty darn important. And let me read a few things and see what other people think about it. But the ordinance says that this city commission has made a finding that an area exists which chronically exhibits extreme and unacceptable levels of poverty, unemployment, physical deterioration, and economic disincentive. Well, that's fine, as long as it is my house, and your house, and their house, and their house, or our houses. But what if it says somewhere in writing that this commission found that in some houses that you didn't happen to think that that was appropriate? And maybe you wanted to sell your house and somebody looks up and says, well, you seem to be an extreme and unacceptable level of poverty. I don't know. And then you go, well, that's okay. The city commission has control over this, so this board of folks won't get into any trouble, there's no problem. Except then you read what are some of the powers of this commission. And one of them is to recommend boundary changes as appropriate in the enterprise zone. So if they decide that they would like to put your neighborhood in, they can.
Recommend you bring
Oh, they can recommend it.
to who?
And then
Madam Chairman,
you
please.
then you get a little bit further and you say that a lot of the powers, let me relate some of the other ones. They can hire a director, so all of a sudden they have a budget. They can sell stock. They can borrow money. They can make and execute contracts. None of these people are elected. None of these people have, no.
Can have the attorney clarify some things? I think there's some misunderstandings.
I think.
City Attorney, go ahead.
Which one's mine?
Well, and I think I know where you're going. Let me guess. I'm gonna guess that these are things that are written at the state level, and if you wanna be in the enterprise zone, you have to agree to these, which was my question to you earlier this afternoon.
Well, yes, but no, that's not the answer I was gonna give you.
All right.
Yes, that's true. I think where we're getting some confusion is if you look at page 3 of the ordinance and compare it to page 4. So page 3, powers and responsibilities of this enterprise zone group.
Right.
Page 4, where it says additional powers and responsibilities, I
Right.
think that's where people are getting thrown off. That probably should have said powers and responsibilities of the city commission.
Except,
All of those additional powers are not powers of this group.
okay, I
That's
buy
right.
that, but,
Because this group is really advisory to this group. You all have the ultimate power to do all these things, and that's why if I could walk through a couple of them.
can I read one of them and you correct me if
I don't
I'm
wanna,
mistaken?
why don't we just make your, can you finish making your points?
This
And
is
then-
important enough
No, no,
that we're not gonna
I'm
cut
not
it off.
stopping you.
No.
What I'm asking you to do is, why don't you make all of your points and then let the city attorney, rather than
Well,
going back and forth in a
he
free
can correct me if I've got it wrong, but I'm reading in page 4, lines 20 through 24, additional powers and responsibilities, and indeed, it says shall be performed by the city commission. But then you read a little further, or contingent upon approval by the city commission, such additional powers and responsibilities shall be performed by the agency. So should we wake up at one meeting and decide that we want to let the agency do that stuff, we've just turned over a whole string of things to a batch of people who were appointed, perhaps appointed by a previous commission that we don't necessarily agree with or whatever, but not people who have any responsibility. They won't be running for election. And I have a very big concern at the size of the powers. So if we wanted to amend this and at least say that or contingent upon approval of the city commission that such additional powers and responsibilities shall be performed by the agency, if you're willing to strike that out, I would be a good deal more comfortable.
City attorney?
And if the commission does want to strike that, I think you can, because the state